Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Creatives Ignite. And I am super excited because today I get to meet with Nathalie Kalbach. I'm going to call her Nat for the rest of the time, but she is somebody who has been inspiring me for over 10 years. Good to see you, Brandy. I see you in there coming in from Canada. She is somebody who has artistically and entrepreneurially, I don't know how to say that, and I probably didn't say it really well, that has been part of the inspiration. So she's a teacher, she's taught classes. She, to me, was a pioneer in the that part of educating art classes online. This was way before Skillshare, way before all the other ones that are out. Nathalie was doing this and I was participating and I absolutely love it. So recently, she's a great writer. She's written a book or multiple books, but I know one book for sure I have in my library. She has a Substack, which I'll share with y'all, but she wrote about a sabbatical she took. And I always think, I know a lot of people popped in. Great to see everybody. You can always join us live on Wednesdays. But we maybe are all working too much, or we're spreading ourselves too thin, and we think, oh, if I could just take a sabbatical. And there's a designer who has done this, and he does it every 7 years. And it just seems like, oh, that's for like really rich people or something. It's like, I'm not going to be able to do that. But I actually think maybe there's some ways that we can incorporate sabbatical in our regular practice. Maybe we don't have to take a whole year, maybe we don't have to take a whole month, but maybe there's different ways to look at it. But taking a break. So we're going to dive in, Nathalie, and ask you a ton of questions about why you did sabbatical and when you did it, what you did, what you were expecting. But before we begin, I probably did not do it justice, but could you give them a little bit of your background and who you are, where you are, and what you do?
Thank you so much for having me, Diana. I always love talking to you. And thank you for everyone who came. Looking forward to meet you. Trying to look at the chat at the same time. So I'm Nathalie Kalbach, short Nat. As you may hear from my accent, I may live in Jersey City, in New Jersey. But I'm actually from Germany. I only lived for 10 years in the US. I'm going to say that because most often people are very curious about it. My husband is American. He is from Central Jersey, as he loves to say. And no, he was not in the army, but he was in Germany, and that's where we met 25 years ago. And so 10 years ago, we came back, or he came back and I came with him. So here I am. I was not always an artist. I used to be a paralegal. I studied law, was a paralegal for 17 years. And at some point, as an outlet of kind of stressful work, which I did like, though, I started doing scrapbooking and art. And then I ventured into mixed media and and I started out writing a blog, I think about 2002, and then wrote about my, just like discovering certain things and trying out things, discovering things with paints and etc. I never had a feeling that I was essentially like talented in art or anything. In fact, I had an art teacher who once told me that I had no talent whatsoever, and I had tried really hard. And so I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Then I guess I study law. So anyway, I came back, and that was good. And it was a coincidence in where I was and how it happened, but people started asking me if I would teach workshops, sometimes in art and craft supply stores, sometimes just for adults that wanted to have a creative outlet. And so I started first in Germany, and then I was asked all over in Europe. And then eventually it became a really big thing that I would travel in my vacation time, which in Germany is a lot. We have 6 weeks of vacation. Don't tell anyone if you're from the US. But so I would spend most of my vacation to actually go to different places like Australia and Israel. It was pretty cool. Greece, and my first time in New York, I was teaching. So it was, very exciting. Thank you about the wall cake paper. So it was very exciting. And yeah, and then I was trying to figure out when I started teaching online, but it was probably around 2008 that I did the first online workshops. And as Diane said, it wasn't, you didn't have these like really big platforms that would help you with that. I would do some videos and would put them on a password protected part of a page, and then you would send out, something. And when I look at some of the videos, I recently found some of them, they're horrible. They look like they're this small on the screen, and it's really bad. Anyway, I mean, back then it might not have been.
It was great though. But one of the things that I also think of you as this pioneer is that you would have Creative Jumpstart, which is it was a 31 days of, there was a prompt, and she would get in touch with all these different artists, 31 artists. You were included, so 30 other people. And they would shoot these videos, and a lot of it was over the head down, and they would be from her prompt making this stuff. And then as a participant, we were doing it as well. And there were ways for us to share. I mean, but to me, you were teaching all these people for so many, over 10 years, right? You were teaching these teachers how to do it. They were artists. They were not tech probably. So all the stuff that maybe just comes so natural. There's all these YouTube wasn't even around. I mean, this was not like, to me, this was a big thing. And she just took it on, and she was happily to teach so many people. And it really created a new way for a lot of people to learn, and people who were more remote, like Maya's in Norway and not really around, a whole bunch of maybe other artists, smaller town. There are some of Santa's reindeer there, but like, those are the things that if you hadn't pushed, and these things weren't cheap in the beginning, right? Like there wasn't the same kind of, you had to do a lot of workarounds, right?
It was actually, in a way, it was cheaper. I feel that because maybe because we were just like using what we had, and you would be like, okay, how can I make it work with a webcam that I try to, giraffe onto some shelf so that I can do. I mean, it was kind of funny. And nowadays you can buy all these like beams, and, people tell you how to do the best way with lighting. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about lighting. And in a way that was actually more freeing. Not a lot of people had really big expectations either. I mean, of course the content had to be right, but it wasn't like someone was expecting like a movie production. I feel that is, depending on what you do, that has changed a lot. A lot of critique would come around at some point or the other about, the production, the lighting, and all kinds of things. And I thought it was always very interesting, because there are a lot of artists that have something to give and to teach. So let them do their thing. And then, that might be better than just having a one-on-one, like a holiday Oscar worth thing.
Right.
But anyway, I'm very outspoken about these things, but I had a lot of fun. Because I was in Germany, and the thing that I did in this mixed media realm and art journaling, there weren't a lot of people in my vicinity that were very close by. So the online teaching and connecting online was a big way to connect with like-minded people. And as we all have seen through the pandemic, it was an early way of actually bringing people together, making it possible for people who maybe not had the means to travel and to pay a lot for these workshops, or people that may be not able to travel because they have, disabilities, or anyway, all kinds of different reasons. And I always thought it was such a great way to connect. Besides also, of course, meeting in person, because that I also enjoyed a lot. And Creative Jumpstart came very much from that urge to connect with my peers, but also to connect with like-minded people and bring people together. So I think the first 2 years were free, and we had like 6,000 or 7,000 students, which was absolutely insane and not sustainable for a free workshop. And then when I started charging, which I'm talking about like $20, and then I think the highest amount was at this end like $65 for 31 classes. I think we had like an average of about 1,200, 1,300 students each year. So yeah.
So it was a lot, but one of the things that another pioneer way, not just teaching people artists how to teach online, you were also the internet, there weren't platforms like Teachable when you started. You were creating your own, which I think if people like you weren't doing that, we wouldn't be where we are today in some of the things that do make it easy for us to do that. But so there's this kind of, to me, you are this definitely, I mean, even in your art, your licensing, you've been, I don't know how you say that, like you're a represented artist. You've had your work on lots of things, not just on things that, like, there are things that we would buy, and it was like your rubber stamps, or like you did stuff with different people who were.
Yeah, I did like licensing design, and I still do, but I was an ambassador for example, for Liquitex, and they would have my artwork on, like they would work with me on kits that they would then put into big box stores with a teaching plan, like, some curriculum or something in there. And then my artwork would be on the packaging, that was super fun.
That's huge.
Yeah,
It's huge. It is. That's a really, but you kept doing these things, and you love architecture. So paint the picture for us in 2022. That was the last Creative Jumpstart. So you're doing other things. Your Creative Jumpstart is not your only source of income. You license your designs, you make products, and you make art. So what else? What was life like? Because it comes to a halt. I had you on the show back in 2018 in December, and I linked it up. So if anybody needs that link, I have it. And we talked about Creative Jumpstart and the reason, but that was just one of the things that you were doing. Kind of paint the picture for us in 2022. Where were you? Where was your head? How were you in just doing everything?
Yeah. So 2022 was a very different life, like for many, because, we were just coming out a little bit of the pandemic, and things have changed. And during the pandemic, everything kind of for all of us came to a standstill. And for teaching, there were no traveling and going to stores, of course. So the online workshop, the first year, which is really terrible to say, but in terms of from a business standpoint, that was actually the best year, which is it's terrible to acknowledge that, but it was, because people were very hungry, like it was, they really wanted to do something online. And even people that had not taken online workshops, now they were ready to do that, because they wanted to learn something, they wanted to connect somehow. So the first year, I did Creative Jumpstart during January through the pandemic. It was actually really, really nice and amazing in terms of connection and what happened there. But it also was the year where everyone kind of like caught on this is how we do online things, how we, every teacher realized, okay, these are ways how we do it. Lots of teachers did amazing stuff where they started teaching live workshops. That's not really my thing, I have to admit. I'm doing a lot I love doing a class that's like, I show you something and then you can do it in yourself in your area. And then we can share what you do and we can have feedback. I feel like this is my desk. And if I do something here, I'm very limited in the way how I can paint or work. It's not really connecting with me and myself in terms of doing art. So that I felt a little, I was starting to feel that I was behind. So I was all these years kind of, I'm pretty okay with my, technology and how I would do things. But now I started to feel, well, no, everyone is doing it, which is cool. I have no problems with that. I think it's good. The more, the merrier, like a rising tide rises all ships. And I truly believe in that. And also that the pie is big enough for all of us. I just felt that I personally, I wasn't interested in doing more online and trying to catch up with all these things, because I was sitting the whole time on my computer, whether it be trying to figure out how sustain my website, which was, by that time now, the platform that I built on with its own everything was custom designed for the classroom. It was very clunky, very hard. I paid a lot of money annually to actually just make it not break down. So that was a problem. Everything started to also be more expensive. Like, okay, then, I told Diane in a earlier talk that, for example, Vimeo would come and say all of a sudden, okay, it's great you have a pro account and you pay whatever, $600 a year, but you have so many hits and so many people that your bandwidth is actually like, we're just not giving you any plan option anymore. We shut you down now and you have to have a call with us to figure out a customary plan. And I'm like, whoa, now we're talking, this is like, once a year, like it's in January where I have all these people coming, but the rest of the year, I usually don't do that. So, it became a real headache in terms of administration. And then teaching, I knew that I didn't want to teach and travel around anymore. I figured that also out. And the other thing was by doing so much online and just being on my computer all day, I would wake up, I would check emails, I would answer emails, I would try to figure things on the web, I would answer to comments, and then with the licensing design, I would basically, what you have to do, you have to show how you can use let's say I do rubber stamps or a stencil, you have to show how these things can be done. So I had a 20-hour week assistant who would help me with some things. I actually had what it was called a design team of 4 people, sometimes 5 people, who I would send my license designs to, and then they would create something in a tutorial, and that would have to be on the web, because then that would trigger hopefully some sales so that I get another 5% or 8% of the wholesale, which then amounted into something that I basically just paid to do all these things, right? So I don't want to sound ungrateful, but it was like a hamster wheel, and I wasn't doing my own art. I would put time in my calendar and say, I want to, I love painting houses and buildings with historical, do historical research, and they often go through changes and gentrification and write stories around it. And I basically hadn't painted much in a year. So, and as a lot of artists that are here today too, I think might know that if you really want to do art and that's your thing, it's not good. I was not in a good place. So I felt like, I felt the reason why I wanted to become a full-time artist was to do my art in the licensing design, the online workshops, the other teaching was to enable me to do that art. But now it became just a thing that I couldn't do anymore. I wasn't doing art, or I didn't feel like it. And so I knew I was tired, I was cranky. An email that would maybe normally not set me on fire, you know, when someone was like, I forgot my password, and you're like, oh, bad. Like, you know, I would just answer and say, no worries, like, just go to the button and say forgot password. And I would sit here and just like be like, well, you know, and it was unfair. It was unfair to the people that you know, support you and are part of your group, of your art group. And I also felt that it wasn't honest for me anymore. Like I wasn't in it anymore, and it was time for change. So that's how the thought of sabbatical came into play.
Okay, so in this, you had moved at some point. Did you ever live in New York?
No.
Okay, so
I mean, we do say in Jersey City, we say we're in the city, but let's face this, we're just across the river.
But then you had loved this house that you're in now from afar. You loved to take walks. You did tons of drawings. A lot of your sketchbooks and things like this are filled with buildings, and you love architecture. So when did you move? Because I think you were in this house when you decided, you were like, I'm not doing any art. What? Right?
I wasn't yet in the house, but we had closed on the house, and I've you know, it's an old Victorian, not that old, but it's from 1890. It's a house that needs a lot of love. Probably shouldn't have bought it, but you know, it is what it is. We love it. Has all original woodwork, but also original windows that are cracked and, you know, rattle, and steam pipes and all kinds of stuff. So it needs a lot of love and work and you know, just attention. But I started doing a lot of research into the house and started to get back into just that I love. I love the history of buildings. I think that the history of a city or a place can be told through buildings. And when I paint buildings, I don't paint them in the colors that you would expect or are realistic. They're transported by what I see in them and what I know about them. I knew that I would have to have a lot of time to also, you know, deal with contractors and a move and all kinds of stuff. I knew that it would be hard to maintain the online teaching. I knew that it would be hard to keep on having work and money for my assistant and my design team. You know, I was like talking to my husband about it, and then he was like, maybe it is a good idea to just reset and get your head free and see if you can get back to your art and just sit a year out or take a sabbatical from, you know, teaching and creative jumpstart. And the more I thought about it, I really had a longing for that. But
did you have a longing for something in particular? Like, was there something that you wanted to do that had been like just in the back of your mind, or it was just kind of like a tickle in your throat that you couldn't get rid of? You know, was it a type of painting, or was it what was it?
Well, I definitely knew that I wanted to continue the way I would, like, I wanted to, the subject matter is always the same in terms of, you know, that research and historic and preservation and buildings, but I wanted to, which was, we can talk about that later, but it was, you know, a little weird, like, oh, from don't have any mojo to paint to, well, we will solve that by just thinking we're going to paint big. I want to paint big, you know, like, I don't know what I was thinking. So I bought these like crazy big canvases that barely fit up the staircase. Didn't even like make them myself. So I just bought them, make it easy. And so that was crazy. Like you have an empty big, surface on the easel, and then you're like, okay, from you don't know, you don't feel it, you don't feel like going, and then you're like doing that, like just scale it up.
It's like, you know what? I haven't been running. I'm going to go run a marathon, kind of. Yes. I mean, it can be a huge, instead of taking a little bite, you're like, now I've got the time, but it can be a real barrier, because then it's all the expectations, and then maybe it starts not looking the way you want it to be, or you don't have enough time or enough paint or whatever. You're not tall enough. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I had actually a friend early on in my sabbatical when I was working on one of the painting. He's a very prolific artist and a very, very, very good friend and mentor. And he was at a party that we had, and he came and he went to my studio, and then he said, he looked at this one big painting that I made, and he was like, okay, Nathalie, want to talk about it? What happened here? And it wasn't like, I mean, it sounds horrible, but it wasn't horrible, like, but he could feel it. He could see it. And I said, why are you saying that? And he's like, I didn't tell, like, you were like going like, and then I talked about it, like this thought of doing big paintings and going all out. And then he said, like, don't do it. Like, just start all over with what you usually do. Like, just like feel it again and be in your body and just do it. Like, do something that you're used to, so that, because it's your muscle memory, that's there, and just reactivate that. And then you can go from there again. And, it was so weird. Sometimes you need someone else give you permission. Although, I mean, if he would say, I give you permission, I would be like, what kind of a friend are you? I'm not asking you. But so, but I was like, oh my God, he gave me permission. Thank you, Adam. So that was really good. But yes, that was a crazy thought. And the other thought that I had for the pandemic, I had this grand thought that I would have figured out a new business model of how I would carry on from now on. Spoiler alert, my sabbatical is over and I haven't.
But I think that's what happens. We are maybe uninspired. We are we're burned out. We're tired of doing what we want to get back to doing the things that we used to like to do, but in a new way. And we have these big goals of like figuring out something that will make a difference for the rest of our business or our lives or whatever. So were you able, and I know this is further down, I can't remember, were you able to really put your business on hold? Like, could you step back for a period of time and not have to think about all that stuff?
It took a little bit. So, I made a hard cut at like January 1st. I'm going to start with my sabbatical. I announced it beforehand. There were a lot of people that were disappointed in terms of the workshops, and that my annual like 12-year-long creative jumpstart would not run in January. And but I had given Kim notice, who was my assistant for 6 years, which was very hard. We would communicate besides the weekend every day. We would text all the time. And I felt like I let her down. I'm very happy to say that it actually was very good for her as well, because she's an artist in her own right. And she very, very immediately started doing a lot of her own artwork and has been exhibited meanwhile in a lot of places and has had great art reviews. And so it was actually probably also like good for her in terms of, okay, I can now do my own thing. I don't know if she saw it that way. I should ask her now again and say, hey, how did that feel? Um, but yeah, that was hard. And then, I did a lot of social media, so it was kind of weird because I felt like, in a way, you're like, oh, I don't want to do it because it's so annoying. But then also you have this like feeling like, is that right? I'm not posting anything. So it took me a while to actually get to the point that no one's gonna miss you and it's okay. You will survive if you don't post. Like, in fact, if you only post once a month or every few months, there will be still people saying, that's great, you're still alive. Awesome to see you, But from your own standpoint out, you also let go of that. And that was great. So yeah, it was a little hard, but I had signed up for a pottery course.
And you had never done pottery before, right?
Never done it.
Okay.
No. Well, I watched the great, people will probably say, oh my God. But I watched the Great British Pottery Show. And, I thought it was so intriguing because there are so many things you can do with pottery and ceramic art. And I knew that I didn't want to be like, it's not like I'm not going to buy a kiln. I'm not going to be,
right.
That's not my next step. I knew that. But I seem to have a lot of like amazing friends. And another very good friend of mine who is an artist said to me, sometimes you just have to do things that you have never done before. And they will set you free. And I was like, maybe I should follow her advice. And I signed up for a 10-week pottery class once a week for 10 weeks at the New York and New Jersey Ceramic Institute, which is run by Frank Bosco, who's a very amazing artist. He has done work with Frank Steller together when Steller was like, venturing into ceramics and some other stuff. So he has this classroom and it was 6 people. We were sitting at the wheel and he's a wonderful teacher, a wonderful person, very dry. Not everyone might get it, but when I came in, he said something like, welcome to hell. Don't expect that you will learn in 10 weeks what I have learned in 20 years. And I loved that. I was like, that's awesome. I like you. So I did that. And I also accidentally, a friend of mine, we have a good friend who's a stained glass artist, but also he restores stained glass windows in churches and Yale Library. If there's a church or a synagogue or something or stained glass window to repair, he's your guy, and he has a amazing studio and people work for him in Union City, and my friend, she's a little younger and loves TikTok, and she said stained glass window stuff is all the rage on TikTok, and I was like, I wouldn't know because I don't do TikTok, but I believe you. And she's like, we should ask Zach if he would want to give us a class. And he said yes. And so free girlfriends, we would go every couple of weeks and would take a class with them through like almost half a year. And we made our own stained glass window, painted it, everything. So there were these 2 very different things. And
that you were both brand new to.
Brand new. And that was the best thing I've done, I think, in terms of like something creative that I did during my sabbatical, because it was, when you do something that you haven't done, I didn't have like, some people might be different with that, but I didn't have this, I really tried hard to hone in my own way of telling my students, don't have this perfect picture in your head. It's too hard. You're setting yourself up for being disappointed or, for failure. Not failure is a hard word, but it's really hard because you have this picture in your head.
You're learning though.
You're learning, right?
You get on a bike and you fall off and then you get back up but
right.
We don't want to get bloody. We just want to get up and go to wherever we want to go. And that's what we want to do with our art too. We have an idea that we should be able to make this perfect cup or this perfect painting or this of what it is in our head, but our muscle memory is not there yet, and it takes
Right.
practice, right?
And that's what, the pottery guy, Frank, basically said is like, don't expect that. That's not, you're not going to get the perfect bowl, like, and I loved it. I loved when I had like a little thing that it looked wonky and terrible, but I did that. I made that. The learning curve in the beginning of whatever you do is actually like really hot, like it goes quick.
Right.
And then it just goes like forever like this. But that feeling was so important to have that again, that excitement of trying something new out, of doing something. So the first 4 months, probably, I tried to do the big painting, which, as we know, sucked. But like, other than that, I didn't do much art. I didn't touch anything else.
Was it because you didn't feel it, or you were just like burned out?
And I gave myself the permission, and I said, at least you're doing something creative and something will come out of that. And then at the same time, I'm sorry if I jump.
No, you had a friend who told you to do something else, to do something completely different. That was the next question I was going to ask you anyway.
Yeah.
So in this time, we tend sometimes, if you're 4 months in, and I don't know how long was your total sabbatical?
It was a year, so till December 31st this last year. And I also signed up. I also started volunteering at our Landmarks Conservancy, which I had followed for a long time here in Jersey City. And I liked their work. And, when I was doing research into some of the buildings that I wanted to paint, I would find their research material or their resources. So I was very interested in what they were doing. And I thought, well, maybe I should apply to be on their board. A friend of mine was on the board, and I thought maybe some of my skills would be beneficial to them. They had social media that was there, but it wasn't like consistent or something. And it was funny, while I dreaded to do my own social media, when I came on the board, I was like, hey, I have a strategic plan for your social media, and I would love to start that and do that. And I did, and I had so much fun, like, because it had nothing to do with my business. I loved learning about different things in the city, old buildings, architecture. And I also signed up for an NYU class in historic preservation to do a certificate program. And this all sounds crazy, but it was like, I didn't do my art. I didn't figure out my business plan, so I was doing that. Not with the plan, like I'm becoming a historic preservation person, but sure enough, I had a lot of exposure to, community meetings. They were like things where, and one thing was where I was invited to a neighborhood association meeting at the Museum of Jersey City History. And that was like with a developer, and a house was demolished just so, because that's the way how we do it here in Jersey sometimes, we just knock it down. And so we had this meeting, and it was a coincidence that the museum's director heard my accent, which jarring it is, but apparently sometimes that's good. And he came to me, and I didn't speak as an artist. I was there for our organization. And he said, "You're an artist, aren't you?" And I was like, whoa, this is scary. How does he know, And he said he saw me because during the pandemic, we have this thing in Jersey City for 35 years. It's called the Jersey City Arts and Studio Tour. So once a year, the city artists open up their studios, or they go and have their artwork displayed. And I had participated a couple of times before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, they made this online. And what I did online was I had all kinds of different paintings of mine and placed them on a map. And I made it like a stroll through the neighborhood where I would zoom into a painting and talk about that building in the context of the neighborhood. And he had seen that, and the museum wasn't even open. He had just seen it and remembered me when I was at this meeting. And he said, well, we have the Jersey City Art and Studio Tour coming up again this year. Would you want to have your artwork in our museum? That would be a perfect fit.
I mean, you weren't even going to get a museum show. This was like, you were just here representing for the historical preservation, right? But this goes back to another thing and you had said this, we had talked about this before. Because you were so busy online and having online communities and inspiring people and teaching in-person workshops, teaching online workshops, it was a lot of time in front of your computer. And there was a lot of like worldwide people that know who you are. But you didn't have as much time to spend in the day-to-day in your neighborhood building those kind of ties. And I think that that's something that really hit me after we had talked. I was like, that makes a lot of sense, like as somebody who does love what you were around, your space, but then you are so people oriented that for you to have this huge online, but in person, you didn't have that as much, even though you were influenced, your art was influenced by the places that were around you. So I thought that was, I just think that's an awesome way that it worked out. That to me, I just believe God was like, oh, hey, I'm just going to put you here and now you're going to have a show, like that is just the wonderful thing of you being you. And then you starting to get into now a deeper in-person community, and then somebody sees you because you have been pioneering and you have been being visible, so anyway, keep going. So he asked you luck.
It was luck too, but it's also, I was like, I'm a person who often says yes, and then I'm like, oh, now I have to figure this out. So I had no work. I had like what he had seen, I didn't have anymore. I had sold it during the pandemic. I was basically like really almost giving things away. I was like, you want a painting? Here's $50, take it. So it's like, ooh. And that was awesome because
what time of year was this? Because this makes you have to start making stuff.
It was in June-ish.
Okay.
And the thing was that he met me, and the exhibition was in the beginning of October, I believe.
Wow.
So I was like, they were like serious, like he was like, yeah, well, okay, and he's emailing me and says, we have a curator and she's going to come to a studio visit, and then and I'm like, studio visit? I mean, if I tell this now, Lucy, she is probably like cracking up. I was like, studio visit? I have nothing. Like, it was embarrassing. So, but I was so excited about this, and I knew this was a really big opportunity. And, I had done all this work on buildings and research for the conservancy. So I walked around, I took photos, for social media. I had done the research. I wrote about people, all
you had sketchbooks, right?
I had sketchbooks. And I was like, I do have the research already. I just need to paint it. And so I painted like a maniac, just also for her visit, because I was like, how much can I kind of like push this away? And she was like, no, we got to do this now, because she's a curator. So she was like, where's this person coming from? No one has ever heard in Jersey City about this artist. Like, where's she coming from? Like, I need to at least first see what's going on too. I mean, I don't think she wasn't trusting it, but she wanted to know what is the work.
There's a system. She has a system of what. Yeah.
And it was such a catalysator for making art under pressure, although I don't believe that you always need this pressure,
Right.
but it was a mixture of feeling so kind of validated that someone saw you several years ago, 2 years ago, still remembered you. So I made an impact on this person who's actually not really into art, and then not wanting to disappoint this person, but also being like, let's go. And I painted day and night. I painted like 20 paintings or whatever, not for the studio visit, but until then. And so the
What
exhibition
size were you working in a different way, a new
yeah,
way?
small
How were you
size
working?
again,
Okay.
back to small size,
Okay.
stretch the big one. and I was like, maybe like 24 by 24 might be the biggest, or 12 by 24, but usually like 12 by 12, even 10 by 10. So small pieces, because also let's face this, we're in a city. People have small apartments, small places. Like they're like, where are you going to put that thing that's like...
You're still thinking about that. Sometimes people, when they're doing something, they don't want to get rid of some things. But you're thinking about, it's still a business. This is still, you would like to sell your art, and you're thinking about the user, the person who's going to buy it. Maybe.
Yeah, I wasn't actually thinking so. Like, I wasn't even thinking that I would sell anything, because I had done these things before, and usually maybe maybe you do, maybe you don't, maybe something comes out later. I wasn't actually like thinking that would happen, but I just like, I wasn't even, actually Lucy brought that up, and she said, okay, so have you thought, like, she was very organized too, which I love organized people, but she was like, okay, if when you set, like, you have to put every painting, photograph it, put it in a Dropbox folder. You have to have the, like, she was basically also teaching me how to prepare an exhibition, which, I hadn't done that. Like, I had done some of it, but it was basically like, a gallery for the JC art tour would say. It was a group exhibition. We take these free paintings, and then you would drop them off. They would hang them, and you set them a couple of things. So she was like, no, I'm going to look at all these paintings. I will pick which one I pick. I want the stories with it. I think the stories are great. But also think about pricing. And I was like, pricing? So she's like, you want to sell things, right? Don't you? And I was like, I guess so. And then I was like, yeah, because it's fun. And so, I did that. I thought about pricing. I thought about these things. And then I sold 4 paintings during the exhibition, which was more than I would have, wanted to. And the museum, now I'm braggy. I don't want to.
No, go ahead. Toot. Let's go, because that gives us hope. So
the museum decided that they want to have the work there indefinitely for now. So I'm basically, when something sells, I can come in and we rehang things, and I bring something new. And it's been amazing.
Well, another part of this that I love, because I love sketchbooks, is that she actually insisted that you have your sketchbooks as well. And you were like, why is anybody gonna want to see my sketchbook? Can you tell about that? And then the students that came in?
Yeah, she saw my art journals, which I usually use to, warm up and try things out. And oftentimes when I have a painting, I do it first in my art journal to kind of practice. And then I have a ledger book from the 1800. And it's like one of those big, gigantic ledger books. And I put the painting in there too. So it's like a text collection ledger. And I felt it was like kind of cool to put the paintings in there too. So I had this kind of thing where I try it first and sketch it out and try some things in my art journal. And then I put it on canvas. And then in case the canvas is done, I'm going to put it in the big ledger, and like you put it in your ledger. And the ledger book was the one that I based my pandemic online exhibition on. And Martin, the museum's director, was like, we got to have the ledger in the display. So when I showed this to Lucy, she looked at my art journals and she was like, this is really cool. You should bring it because it shows your progress and how
your
people
process too, just of how you
and I was
think
like, oh my God, this is like, there's a lot of ugly stuff in there and things you real like, like it's important to me, but it's not, there are a lot of things that I would never really share because it's like, who did that?
Yeah.
So yeah, so she was like, no, bring some. So we had like maybe 4 or 5 books somewhere in a display case, so they couldn't be touched and just one page was open. But then some of them were just on a little kind of like
pedestal or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had actually like had them open, but I had like a little double-sided like painter's tape so that the page that I wanted to show was open. But it took like 2 seconds at the opening, and the first person was like going through it. And I kept like, pinching it down, but people were drawn to it. And so many people asked me about those, and they said, it's so interesting to see how the process is, what you think, how you do that. And then actually, a friend of mine too, who knows what I do, but has never seen my art journals. He works for a big tech company, and he said, wow, you're doing this? What is this? And I told him, and he said,
you're like, I've been doing this for 20 years, buddy.
Do we know each other? And then he said, well, don't you want to come to my company and teach a workshop, kind of
for
like a
non-creatives, right? For just
non-creatives.
Right. Which I think it has also kind of inspired you in and just all these things have to do with your community, have to do with people that you know, being nice to people, but also being out in the world. And then it has come around. And I just think it's like a beginning of a slide where it's happening and all that hard work. And it just is it's paying off. And I'm glad that you took a sabbatical. I'm sorry that the big paintings didn't work out, maybe one day, but I do think that there's been such great things that have come out, but you being a rookie, doing the pottery class, taking ceramics, doing the stained glass that was still visual, but then you really poured into the historical preservation. You took another class that was not about painting, right? It was something else. And then you did tons of history on just the buildings in the area, and you continued to do your work. But I do think having that spur of you needed to, Lucy was coming over and you were going to have a show and you needed to get something. Sometimes having a deadline like that, I think is important. I know that when I've run groups and there's some accountability to somebody getting their website up. It's like you're saying you're going to do it. If you didn't have accountability, you'd never get it done. If Lucy wasn't coming, you wouldn't have stayed up late painting or whatever, right?
Yeah, and that was good. And I also think that I thought about maybe doing something with companies at some point, but I never thought that I personally would be interested in it, because I was like, well, but I think being in the situation again where I was the beginner and had no clue of doing things, and that excitement, I'm looking forward to work with people who don't know anything about it, and they just signed up because they want to figure it out for 2 hours or 3 hours. It's a 3-hour workshop, 3 hours during work. And, I'm like, I'm excited because I'm sure there will be a couple of people that really got something out of that. That doesn't mean that I need to convince them to do this for the rest of their life, that they have to be, artists now or want to be artists. It also means I don't have to figure out how I sell
convince people. You said that the other day. You said,
yeah,
man, I have to convince people to take this, or and I just, that has stuck with me since we talked, because it's like that is what it feels like, but it is so freeing. And then but this tech company where it's something totally outside, those people aren't doing design, maybe they're like doing
They may, they
accounting
may
or
not.
whatever
Yeah.
they're doing, like regular HR stuff. And then they're coming in as a way to think differently and they might not have even ever seen an art journal,
Mhm.
right? And I think that it's like what the pottery class did for you or what the historic preservation class did for you, because it was just something outside. I think for me, reading your Substack, which I'm going to put your links here. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can just check them out. They're right down below. They're at the top. And then if you're on wherever you get your podcast, they're also right at the top. I'm going to read them. So Nat Kalbach, KALBACH.substack.com. That one you talk about, you had, there's images, there's all kinds of stuff, which I think is great. So you were journaling, you were doing collecting, you were making art journals as well, but you were collecting this information and then you shared it. And I think when I read it, it popped up that you had one. I read it and then I commented because I was like, man, I could feel from your thing, the sabbatical was successful, but in a way that you didn't expect. And
Yes.
you didn't come out so if you were measuring it on how you thought you were going to be coming out of it, it wasn't a success.
No.
But you don't know where you're going. But now you're like, I found some things and I have some direction, or I have some things that are interesting to me that I didn't know about before, or you are renewed. I think sometimes we think about a sabbatical being a refresh. It's a restart, it's a respite. I have a break. I don't have to do things. But really, there's a lot of mental stuff that goes on because if you are taking it at the end of a burnout, it's hard to get back in. I think it's really nice that you gave yourself 4 months to just kind of heal. I guess,
Mhm.
it's not like you're completely healed now, but you're at a much better, a different place than you expected. I think the expectations, just like you would say to somebody, if it was their first time drawing, whatever, doing an art journal, drawing an apple, painting a building, you would say, hey, don't get in your head too much. But I think the same thing for sabbatical. I don't think enough people say that. Like,
Mhm.
my sabbatical was absolutely not everything I wanted it to be. There were lots of parts that were good, but I thought I would have more time. And when I've taken more breaks, even if it was just a month, I still didn't make the art I wanted to make because I didn't have that regular practice. It was like your big canvases. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't. And I think for me, I have to continually be doing it. And I have a hard time getting out of the sketchbook. So I need to be just like you would. If you wanted to paint on big canvases, you needed to be painting on big canvases before the sabbatical so that you're more comfortable and you can move, right?
Mhm.
And I just think it is the mindset of this isn't going to solve everything. You're not going to have it all figured out. Because if you were to just stay in sabbatical mode, how long do you think it would be till you figured it out? Like,
Never. Well, I think I think the one thing that I do have is that, I changed my career path once.
mhm.
And when I did that very strategically. Like I didn't just quit my job and said, this is it. Like I had built up my online teaching and my traveling. I had these connections, I had these opportunities. I think I even had my first licensing agreement already. Maybe it came a little later, but it was around the same time. And so I also had like something to fall back onto. So I knew like, okay, I'm going to try it. And if it doesn't work out in 3 years, that would be around the time that I could still go back to being a paralegal without being out of, knowledge too long before no one would want to have me back, or I would have to restudy everything. So I was very, very, I had like a plan, and I was like, here are different income sources. This is how I could make it work. And, it worked for the long time. So, this time I thought when I went into the into the sabbatical, it wasn't like a real career break, but I thought I would come out with this
new idea, new
plan.
path. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like, and what I did come out though with was like a knowledge of what I really like and where my interests are, and what makes sense in terms of for my artwork and other things that I like to do. And funnily enough, some kind of confidence that something will come out of this, which is, I'm not like, oh, yeah, I'm shouting it in the universe and something's happening. I'm not actually very like straightforward, organized. This is the first time I'm doing something crazy like this ever. For me, it feels like, oh, what's she doing? But there is some sort of confidence that if I keep on working and dig a little deeper, that I will find a path. It's basically the same that I did while I was still a paralegal, and I was digging into this, art thing, and I did that. So the only difference is right now I don't have like a steady income that I used to have when I did that, when I was still figuring that out. So, but I mean, then maybe I have to get like if I don't figure that out soon, then I might have to work like half time somewhere, like I will figure this out somehow without having to go back and do online classes or the things that I realized they had their time and their place and they were great. And I'm so glad I did it. But I don't want to go back to that. That's not my fallback right now.
Right. Well, now I think maybe you have a renewed faith that the next things will come and that you will continuing to go down some of that historic, because that's where you feel like the call to keep going, that there have been two things that have come out of you just having people in your life. And one of those was at the museum, and it was because you were there for the historic preservation, the conservancy. And then the other one is just maybe he came to that show or who, it's like things will keep rolling, but you do have to keep talking about what you do. You have to keep advocating for others, or, advocating for the buildings so that people don't just wreck them down or whatever. Right. But I think that it's like your passion, and that you are like, we'll figure things out. And if I need to go back and do something else, then it's not going to be where it's going to suck the life out of me, so that I'm not able to get back to who I am. So if you were going to do another, how will you incorporate a sabbatical in your regular life now? So for somebody who can't take like a time off.
Yes. I think it's really, really, so I'm way better now in just saying a weekend is a weekend. I used to not to, because they're like, I'm always there. I always have to be the person who does that. I think a social media break, if you're a lot on social media, I think that it's a blessing and a curse. I know a lot of people say, I hate social media. And I wouldn't necessarily, it depends, right? But I wouldn't necessarily say that, because I also think there is, it's an opportunity that we have nowadays in a way that has never been there before, to make your artwork seen by a range of people that might have not seen it otherwise, especially if you don't have a gallery or other ways of distributing that, that's actually pretty cool. But I think you need to make sure that you're not becoming what they want you to become, the content creator. Like, that's not your job. I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want to be a content creator. And I don't want to play into this, like, now I have to make reels. Like, I've made like maybe one reel by accident and, survived so far. So I think that's important.
That's great. I love that.
Right. So you just like take some breaks from that. Try to get out of that pressure And I try to do that. I'm not good in not using, like, I have an attachment and I hate that. And I wish it was better. But in terms of, creating content, I'm way more relaxed. Like, maybe if you need that, then say, I want to have at least only 2 days a week, but I don't even do that. It doesn't matter. And then the other thing is like really get out and do really some other things, like sign up for a class. If you can't take a real sabbatical, maybe sign up for something that you always had a little, like, if you're a painter, do dancing. Well, you don't want to dance, but I'm saying, like, do something that you have been interested in, but it has nothing to do, because I think there's always something that happens in you. And when we learn something new, I also think we're so creative. I think that's the cool thing about creatives, that even if we do something that has nothing to do with what we think it has nothing to do with what we're doing, you always, when you learn something new, you always try to connect it to what you already do, what's there creatively. And that gives you the opportunity to explore something that's totally different. Let's say you go and you take a dance class, and then you would be like, how can I incorporate my art with dancing? I'm making this up now, but how do I combine historic preservation with painting the buildings that I paint, and then maybe write about it or whatever. So there are ways to do that. And also I think, while I think that online, like all these online tools and everything that we have at our hands are really amazing, what this year really honed back to me was how important interpersonal connections on a local scale are, and how wonderful it is to also be exposed to people that might have the same goal or the same purpose, or thinking about the same purpose, like being in this place, but they come from all kinds of different ways of life, and it's diverse, and I think that's also important. And that gives a lot of sparks and ideas. I did a whole oral history project with with the Landmarks Conservancy. We got a grant, and I interviewed a 104-year-old woman. She's amazing. She actually turned 105 in November. But that conversation, just like having this conversation, and then, that sparked also something in me, because it's storytelling, historic preservation, painting old buildings, doing the research. So when you find something that you think that has nothing to do with what you're doing, you will make connections somehow. And I think that's where a lot of joy and fun can come out of. So take your mind off of what you usually do, but see how you can kind of like think about it back. Or you do like I had this jazz talk. I saw a jazz talk, and my husband loves jazz. I would say, like, I'm more like this elevator jazz person. So if it goes too crazy, I'm like, oh. So, but I heard this jazz talk actually by my husband, but anyway, and we watched the Ken Burns documentary on jazz. Kill me now, because I love Ken Burns, but it's like 10 million hours of jazz history, right? And I was thinking about how these jazz musicians were talking about jazz. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of connections that I can make to painting on canvas. Like when you do a jam session, how they have these skills, but how do they come together? And, every time I do something new and I kind of think, how can I bring this back and make a bridge to what I know? That's when the fun thing happens. So that would be my suggestion. Do something that's like really crazy, weird, different, or do something with your partner and see what his interest is, and see if you can find a connection there, actually. So, yeah.
I love that. This has been awesome. I want to just make sure so that people can get in touch with you in other ways. So Nat Kalbach at substack.com or Instagram.com/Nat Kalbach, Kalbach, just in case. And then your website is Nathalie's Studio. There's two S's right next to each other. .com. Nathalie's Studio, and Nathalie with an H. NATHALIESSTUDIO.com. It's pretty amazing that I can read that and it didn't mess up in my head and coming out of my mouth. This was awesome. I got up super early today and I told Nat, I was like, man, this is why I do this at this time of day, because it really energizes me. I would never be able to go to sleep right now. This is hopeful. Gives me hope. So at a university, we have to apply for sabbatical. I applied, it got denied. Not that my project was bad, it just goes to the people who haven't had one. So I'm all for that. But I'm like, how can I still take or still make the things that I wanted to do? How can I make that? But it means that I have to say no to something else that maybe I'm currently doing so that I can really go forward. And I think that's something else that you taught me. But the other thing is just in my local community and with my alumni or other people that are here locally, what can I do and how can I connect with those people as well? Because I think that's another, another point that you've said that's really stuck with me. So I love it. Thank you for spending time with me and with us. And I am just very thankful and to have you back. And I can't wait to have you back again. And I just keep love reading your Substack and seeing your art. And so just thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me again. It was so fun. And thank you for these questions. They made me really think about this too. And thank you for everyone coming. So I hope we can connect and yeah. Thank you.
Me too. And next week, just so everybody knows, this is the last, I know I say it's January, but my friend Colin, who is coming, he was on back in November or something, and he is going to come back because I didn't know he did all this stuff with mental health. But the reason he can't do it on Wednesday and on the last day of January or within January is because he teaches a exercise class. And we're going to talk about that as we close out the mental health month that we celebrate here on Creatives Ignite. So it will be on, next Wednesday is the 31st. So on Thursday, same time, regular time, wherever you normally watch it, but it'll be on Thursday. So I will see y'all on Thursday next week. Nathalie, thank you so much. I hope that I'll keep bugging you and I'll keep reading, and just thank you for inspiring and being willing to share and do something different, and keep painting, because I love your paintings.
Thank you so much.
I'll see y'all next week. Thank you again, Nat.